What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Elliott Delp, and today we're going to be doing a review on this Arken Optics SH4 Gen 2 scope. All right, so before we get into everything, I would like to say thank you to Arken Optics for sending this optic out. That's kind of the disclaimer there. They did send this out to the channel for the Mark 12 build here. If you haven't checked that video out, make sure to do that. Awesome little custom build from 801 Weapon Works. Okay, second thing, make sure you are checking out Basement Operator Company. So this is our apparel line, basementoperator.com. If you go check it out there, we have released new Golden Comfort merch. All right, so you got the Canned Goods t-shirt, and you have the Sunday Gun Day, and then the original Basement Operator, all in the Comfort line. And then also we have some Canned Goods stickers. So if you like suppressors, you want to slap that on your Yeti, go check that out, basementoperator.com. All right, so let's talk about this scope and kind of how it's used, how it's functioned, some of the features of it, and my overall opinions on this optic. So this, as previously mentioned, the Arken SH4 Gen 2. This is a 4-16 by 50 millimeter. All right, so this is a big old honking scope. This has, well, I got the scope covers on them. I'm not gonna take them off because they're like impossible to get on and off. But when you pick this thing up, just comes with the optic. You can pick up the scope reams from Arken. That's an additional $40. The scope itself runs about $400, and it does come in both MOA and mil. Okay, this is a first focal plane scope. So if you're unfamiliar with first focal plane versus second focal plane, it is how the reticle changes as you are magnifying. In a first focal plane optic, the reticle will grow as you magnify and shrink as you demagnify. And in a second focal plane optic, the reticle will stay the same no matter what you do. So holdovers remain consistent in your first focal plane scope. So let's talk about it. Awesome, nice throw, very standard. All right, this is not a very hard throw, and it's not a easy throw. The 4-16 is nice. I don't like it super magnified. I don't care what kind of optic you're using. The more you magnify, the more the shakier it gets. I think a 16 is perfectly fine for me to take it out to every bit of 1,000 yards. I don't think you need too much more. I've had like the Atro, the Accufire magnifies way further, and I kept it down when shooting that distance just because I didn't really feel like I needed it. So the 16 is perfectly fine for me if you, in my opinion, if I want to do long range shooting. Moving forward from that, you have the tubes. This is 34 millimeter tube. There's not too many people out there that make scope rings for that. Luckily, Arken does, and their scope rings are not too important or not too expensive. As previously mentioned, they're around $50, $40, $50. And that's what I have on here, and that's what I'm using. And it is a 20 millimeter or 20 MOA mount. So it's canted a little bit to give you a little bit more distance. Works great. Sturdy, has the specs for how tight to tighten it down on top, so you can tighten it down to spec and you don't have to worry about your optic moving any. Okay, so as we have worked our way to the biggest, bulkiest piece of this optic, you have your elevation change. So this is MOA, and it has 123 MOA of elevation built in, so you can adjust it to 123 MOA. Once you zero it, you can reset the zero stop and have it set up to where you don't have to do anything. You can just reset it back to zero, and it works great. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Tracks very well. And then you have your windage. You have 50 MOA of windage adjustment if you need to do any type of windage adjustment. I usually use the holdovers inside of the reticle. So then you have, this is illuminated, so you have your illumination here on the side, which is nice. And then you have your parallax adjustment. You can go from 20 to 500, or I guess 20 to infinity, however you want to do it. And it works well, works how it should. I have no complaints at all about the parallax adjustment. Now to get into the reticle. So the reticle, I will pop it up somewhere here on screen, but it's a very typical Christmas tree reticle. All right, so nothing special, but it is effective in its job. It looks good, and it's really, when you're on your 4 power, you can see your crosshairs well. And when you zoom all the way into your 16, it's not too much. It doesn't take up your whole entire target. it's still a good, crisp, clean reticle at 16. All right, so moving all the way forward, you have your 50mm objective out here on the front, and that's just very typical with long range scopes. It gives you a better field of view out to distance, and it gives you a little bit more, I guess, working room so you can see more out there. So let's talk about how this scope has performed and how it has been used throughout the testing. So if you're unfamiliar, this is the Mark 12. I tested the Mark 12, and this was the scope that was mounted to it for the whole duration of the testing. I zeroed it and took it out 500-600 yards, and it's been a very, very good, crisp, clean optic. So the reticle's crisp, the optic itself is clear. It's very, very good, very, I guess, usable. When doing the zero, I had nice tracking ability. You can hear these clicks. They're super audible, which is something I really like in my longer range optics, something I'm doing a lot of changes with. I like being able to hear the clicks. I think that's super, super important. It tracked really well. When making the adjustments, I could walk it out, walk it back in, do everything I needed to do, and the adjustments were on par. I did something a little different with the Mark 12. I did a zero at 50 yards for a 6mm arc, just to see how it worked, and it's worked pretty good so far. I haven't had a problem with it. Haven't had a problem making the adjustments. The adjustments weren't weird. The 50 is still pretty consistent. With the 5.56, it's a little different, but it's still my favorite zero. Okay, so it performed good. It performed exactly how it was supposed to, and it's just an awesome little optic. All right, and for $400, you get a lot out of it. So who is this for? Why would you buy this? So this is for your long-range shooter that does not want to spend $1,000 on a scope. Maybe you're just getting into it. Maybe this is something that you're not sure if you want to dive into long-range shooting and you don't want to dump a ton of money. Maybe you have just picked up your first bolt gun. Maybe it's like a Ruger Predator, about a $400 or $500 scope or gun, and you want to put a good optic on it, but you don't want to spend a ton of money. You want to get a good value. That's where this Arken is going to step into play. All right, for that $400 plus a $50 mount, or just get scope rings. Scope rings are even less than a traditional AR-15 style mount. That's who this is really for. It's not the lowest, most budget optic you can buy, but it's also not the most expensive. It's a good medium range starter optic for someone looking to get into long range shooting. I wouldn't say this is a hunting optic by any means. I don't think I would use this. It's just too big, too bulky for me personally to hunt with it. But if you're putting it on a tactical rifle, put it on something that you want to have a little bit of range with, this is definitely where this optic will shine and perform its best. Okay, so I think that really about does it for the video and this overall review of this Arken Optics SH4 Gen 2 scope. So I really thank you to Arken for sending this out, and also make sure to follow me on Instagram. There you can find deals, like if this thing ever goes on sale, I'll put it in Instagram, and it'll be a swipe up link there. You can check it out, pick it up. So make sure to follow me on Instagram to get the best deals. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button on YouTube, and I think that about does it. I appreciate everybody, and make sure to take someone outdoors. I'll see you next time.